This conference will now be recorded.
So let's go ahead and look at the time zone, time stamp, and all this stuff, right? You guys can see my screen, right? Yes, Hello, guys. Sorry. I had somebody knocking on the door. Okay. So when I just converted it into a time zone, right? So it added this -8. Did I take a new session? Steven. Okay. How come? Yeah. So 1200 hyphen -8 is the time zone. So we did not mention any time. Okay. So let's find timestamp. Underscore TC is -7. How come this is showing -8 1 hour central time zone? There's a difference in the time zone, right? TG shows me -7, and this one shows me -8. One second, let me hold on. One second. Let's go do this one. So when I use my current date, right, 2021-06-05 line timestamp, it's converting to -7. So some issue here. I don't know, I'm not sure. Maybe daylight savings time, but the time zone is different, right? No, my question is right. Changesh, whatever you said is correct, but this is whenever I query this, I get this, and then what is this stuff? Yeah, maybe you are correct. Daylight savings time. And I had this example, it was a different thing. Number of hours. Yeah, you are right, Chandragiri. Maybe I am wrong. That is true. When I had this particular thing, right? I had this. Good man. Okay. So, and if you want to set up the timestamp and to a different format in your session, alteration set timestamp type mapping your timestamp integer. Okay. Yes. Uh, timestamp mapping. So whatever, whenever you change the timestamp mapping in your session, right, it automatically stores the same timestamp format. Okay. Create a request table ts test ts timestamp. So I'm trying to load data into describe table. If you look at it, right, timestamp integer. Because the mapping that I set is like this. I am creating a table with the integer. Okay. One, integer. Okay. If you don't mention any of the timestamp, by default, whatever the timestamp mapping, right, it takes them. If you mention the timestamp integer or whatever the timestamp format, then the table gets created in the same. Here, I did not mention anything. I just said timestamp, and it took whatever the mapping format that is there in the session, and then it created. If you look at this table, right? See timestamp. I did not say timestamp integer, which is the TS test, right? Sorry. I replaced it. So first I do one display test 3. So this is the mapping that we normally set in the production environment, in the account level as well. We don't want to. So this is the default in my production environment. And if you want to set up in any session or any account level, you can set up your timestamp mapping. So that means whenever you query for a timestamp, it gives you no time zone format, wall clock format. So whenever you're storing data into your table, whenever it's a timestamp, then it is no NTZ. Okay. If you specifically mention NTZ and mention a particular timestamp format in the table, then it creates in that particular format. Here we are creating with LTZ, so it automatically takes. Okay, timestamp LTZ examples. Create a request table TS test timestamp. Set time zone equal to Los Angeles. PST time zone. Insert into TS test. Next. So,
Sir, local time zone means it's our system time zone only, right? You can say like that.
yeah, that you can set it up. You have to tell them what is the local. See, for example, if you are in California PST time zone, your time zone and then LTZ local time zone are same. But the time zone, it stores the data differently. It's similar to the local time zone, but it stores the data differently in the database. It just stores only offset of the how much is the difference between the UTC. So it just stores that only. Okay. The way it
Okay.
stores in the database is different. That is not to our naked eye. And where that is useful, I haven't come across. There might be a use case for it, but I never come up with that kind of.
Okay.
So I'm running create a request test table TSS TS time zone. So all the set time zone is equal to by default it's America Los Angeles only. Insert into TS test this local time zone run and insert into TS test the same time format plus 00. So whenever you go and query this TS test, right? The number of hours is different by, right? The time for January 2nd is 8 in Los Angeles, which is 16 in UTC. So if you look at this particular timing, right? So both of them are timestamp is LTG means UTC time zone. But if you go and then get the hours from the timestamp, right? This is 16, this is 8. So this is the UTC time zone and this is the regular PST time zone. Same time, when you store it in a different way, it stores the offset, right? It stores the number of hours difference between the time. Are you guys, are you able to follow me?
Yes, Sekar.
And then, so let's take it to, let's do the excitement. Now the time zone is, we are counting. Select. This thing is also modified. -5. So it stores the offset of the time zone. The moment based on the time zone, it shows you the time zone. So we did not mention this is not a wall clock kind of thing. This is based on the time zone, right? So LTZ is the one that we have created. And when we set the time zone to PST time zone, then it showed us a different. And then when we stored, so even when you set it to this one, and then when you query, right, -8, you did not store -8 here. It has become part of your time zone, PST time zone. Here, you are trying to insert plus UTC part of it. That's why it shows an hours of difference of 8 hours. So which is 14, if you look at it in UTC. This is the UTC format. The same way when we go and change it to New York, the time zone is also modified and the difference between hours 5, 7, 11. That is the difference between the number of hours between the UTC time zone and the New York time zone. How we want to utilize this? So we now, I'm just giving you all the examples, but I'm not sure how we are going to use this. So timestamp NTZ, we have, so let's go and do this same. Similar examples for timestamp. So when you go and then create this particular thing, right? NTZ is a wall clock. By default is Los Angeles. Insert into two records. If we go and query, right? Both of them will show the same time. See? 4, 4, 16, 16. So NTZ is always wall clock. So whatever, no matter what it shows, it gives you the wall clock time, whatever the time zone format is. And then I'm changing it to New York. Then it gives me the New York time. This is a wall clock, and then this is the time in New York, basically at the time. So it doesn't have anything to do with the time zone. Okay. And then what else? So let's go and look at. So we have looked at the times, local time zone, which stores the UTC difference as well. Now let's go and look at the time zone product. Okay. Alter session time zone. I'm inserting two records. 2014. So this one, when you said time zone based on the UTC format, it press 000. And the hours is not, there is no change, but the time zone is different. The time is the same. So if you look at this, right, the January 1st record, whatever the January 1st that we have created, is the session time zone. Whatever the time zone that is part of the session is here. Here you will see plus 0000. So how much is the offset of the, whenever you do like this, right? How much is the offset? There is no difference in the offset because we are trying to query from the same time zone. If you have changed it, let me go ahead and change it to New York. It should show me a difference. Hold on one second. Let me explain. There is no change in New York. No change in hours as well. So changing the session time zone does not influence the results because So it just converted the offset. So this one, if you say plus something something, right? You are trying to tell how many hours it's off by the time zone. So it says that whenever you are using the time zone format, it doesn't change anything whether it's New York or if it is Los Angeles. So let me go and explain it more. I'm also confused here. One second. So this is the time zone format. We set the time zone as Los Angeles and insert into test. We have inserted. Is already done. So if you go and then putting the table, right? I have this. This is here when we inserted, we did not mention any time zone format, so it brought up the time zone format as -8. Okay, so and when you take about 2014 01 to 16, and then whenever you issue this particular insert statement plus 0000, then it's of the same format and it got the number of hours there. Even if you go and change, so this one is the session time zone. Whatever the session time zone, it got it. But I'm little confused with this one. And I was converted into numeric time zone offset. Oh, so if you don't give any time zone format, it takes it from the session. If you give the time zone format, then it normally whatever the time zone it stores the offset, and then whenever you query the hours, there is no change in the hours. It's part of the same time zone. It gives you the hours. Even if you change the time zone for a different thing, right? The number of hours won't change. I'm sorry, yes, I'm kind of a little confused here. I will get back to you on this. I'm making a note of it. I'll get back to you on this. Okay? So how do you convert the time zone? So this is the output format, and you can set the timestamp output format. Here we had some mapping, right? Timestamp time mapping. So how do you want to map this time? Here the format, complete format. What is the format that you want to have it in your session? This is timestamp output format. Okay. And whenever you query, it will show you the format in this particular way. So if you modify the output format, right? If you want a different format, it shows you in different format. Let's go. Which one I am calling? No, sorry. Convert time zone, right? TS test time zone. Which one did I copy? I did not copy. Alt doesn't set timestamp output format. This one, and then select current timestamp. So it shows you in this particular format. If you go and modify this, right, DDMONYY, for example, Can you see this? Based on this parameter timestamp output format, it shows the way that you're querying the data. So if you want to save your dates in a different format, you use this timestamp output format and current timestamp, current date. Okay, select current date. It's a regular one. But the timestamp gets modified because this is the timestamp output format. So it gives you in this particular. If you want to change the format for the entire session when you're trying to load data into your table or whatever you're doing, right? You can go and change this particular thing. Okay. So I'm going to go back. Okay. Now I'm trying to convert this time zone into New York at that particular time of NTZ. This is a wall clock time zone. I'm just trying to convert to Los Angeles time zone. It is 4 o'clock. 4 plus 3, 7 hours is the difference normally. It is, how much is the difference in New York? If it is 4 o'clock, 2 o'clock, then this is 5 o'clock, 70. So this is how you convert the time zone. Convert time zone from this particular time zone to this time zone and what are the time and what are the format you want. So this is in Europe, European Warsaw UTC. This is in the UTC format. Okay, this doesn't make sense to us, but we never worked on Europe time zones unless until your client is in Europe. This is some example of it. So converting Warsaw to UTC kind of thing, converting two different. And inserting the timestamp format and time zone Los Angeles 280415 as time in India. So this is the regular. So even though when we change and did not change, that is the default format because this 5 by MMDD, this is the default format of Snowflake. Okay, if you have a different format when you change it, something like this, this gets modified. Okay, so and then so unless until if you don't, if you look at this particular SQL statement, right? I am not converting it into any time zone. Here I am converting into a no time zone. That is the reason whenever I run this query, it gives me the default format 5 by MMDD. But if you don't use my conversion, right, it gives me in the timestamp that I have set up here, my default timestamp format. If you go look at this, so 05 April something. If you say, so this is what I have modified it. If I unset it, right, that is then y by MMDD. Y by MMDD. Okay. So how you want to use this? These are the many number of, unless see dates, right? You should have a business case to convert by default. So the important thing that you guys have to remember is in your system, they would have already set it up. If you're working to set up your system from scratch, for the dates, follow the no time zone. You have your time zone for your account, and then whenever you're trying to save data into your tables or anything at all, right? Just use the wall clock time so that you know at that particular. So saving the time zones and all this stuff, you're making your life much more complex. Just have the same plain time, and that is when the record was inserted into that one. Even if you are working from India, you are working from different place, right? You keep the same time zone. So, and when you want to compare where that record has been inserted from, if you have a time series data, when you want to really compare where this record come from, then you have to have your alternate local time zone, and from for a particular session, what is the time zone of that particular session, local time zone, and then identify you and all this. So whenever you are trying to load from India, then you set up your Indian time zone and then insert into the table so that they can easily identify what is the difference, where is the data loaded. Okay. So if you want to select the wall clock time in different time zones, convert time zone and give the time zone and the current time. Okay. This is the current time stamp because our default time zone is LA, New York, and then Europe, Paris. This is Kolkata. Now in LA, the PST time zone 11:14 midnight, and New York 11:14. So 20, 21, 06. Instead of 5, we'll have 6 because 3 hours difference, right? 23 plus 3, that comes with the next day. So 06. This is 05. And then hold on, sorry. There is something wrong here. The current timestamp is this one, 23/14/08. There is no change in 23 for when we are trying to convert into New York. Maybe the time zone that the timestamp may be different. It might be pointing to New York time rather than. Okay. Now we can see, right? This is 8 o'clock. So now the time in LA is 8 o'clock because 8:45. Yeah, this is the correct one. So previously when I ran this query, the time zone was pointed to New York time zone. That was the reason for showing. It was not showing the difference. Now the time in LA is 8 o'clock and New York is 11 o'clock. Paris is so and so, and Kolkata is some. This one 8:45, 59, whatever it is. Okay. And when you have stored your data in a particular time zone in your table, and if you want to convert it into a different time zone, this convert time zone thing helps you. Okay. And then this is in different timestamp. How does it look like? Time zone, no time zone, local time zone, and if you insert the data, how does it look like? Let's go on the section. Let's start from what? That's all. We have inserted 4 values. Why we call it 1? 1, 2, Yeah. Okay. So if you look at this, right, this is timestamp teaser, time zone format, and then NTZ. So local. So you know this is a wall clock. The first one is a timestamp. It just had plain timestamp, and then time zone. It had the time zone, and then this is the wall clock. So this is similar to the timestamp and local time zone. So the local time zone and time zone are similar. There's no change normally for a particular time zone kind of. Okay. So whenever you change the timestamp output format, right? We have seen based on the output format that you set up in a session, the timestamp out whenever you query for timestamps and all this stuff, right? It automatically shows you in this format whatever you have done. Okay. This is a timestamp output format. This is the time zone output format. This is the no time zone output format. So you have different output formats for different types, and you can use if you are using that particular time zone or NTZ or TZ, and if you want to change the format of that particular thing, you can change this. Okay. So this is in the same format YYY MMBD. Even if I change, I don't see any difference. It's from so FF meaning 9. Okay. FF0 is only 1. You know FF is the nanoseconds, right? Fraction seconds. Okay. I don't see any difference because unless until you change, this is the default format. So initially we did not mention FF and the timestamp was until here only. So when I query this one, right? This is 1, 2, 3 something. Means when I did not mention any FF, the fraction of seconds, it showed me only until 1, 2, 3. This is not shown for me. Now it's showing all the 9 digits for me. All the 9 digits for the time zone, even for the wall clock in this one. So I don't see any difference apart from having the effect. And if you go and change any of the formats here, right, then it will reflect. This is the default format of Snowflake, and whenever we query, it shows us in the same format. If you want to have a different format, you can change the format here and it reflects in the same way whenever you query. Okay. Okay, and then so this is the interval, right? So we talked about intervals. 1 year, 1 day. First adds and subtracts a year and then a day. If you say 1 day, 1 year, first adds and subtracts a day and then a year. Okay, let's go ahead and look at these two things. So today, 2019 February, right? This is first adds an year and then the date. 2020 March. If you go first here, first one, right? 1 day, 1 year. First adds a day and then a year. Here adds a year and then a day. Adds a day means 2002, 28, 2019, 2020, 20, that becomes March 1st, and then 2021. Adds a day and a year here. This is one. Here adds a year. 2020, February 28 plus 1, it might be 29. See? Okay. I am adding 1 year plus interval 1 year. 2018, 2019, 04, 015. That's it. And similarly, you can add 3 hours and 18 minutes interval to specific time. 2 time of this one plus interval of 3 hours and 18 minutes. 2 time will give you just the time format of it. 3 hours and 18 minutes. From 4 o'clock plus 3 plus 18 minutes. This is what the time. If you want to increment by a time interval, you can do like this. And this is a big one. Current time stamp plus interval of 1 year, 3 quarters, 4 months, 5 weeks, 6 days, 7 minutes, 8 seconds, 1000 milliseconds, 400,000 microseconds, this many number of nanoseconds, as complex interval from the current time stamp. I don't know whether we are going to use this or not. I'm just giving you complex interval, right? It gave me 2023. The current time stamp is 2021, right? It 2022 should be the, but when it changed 3 quarters, 4 months, 5 weeks, it moved on to the next year. See, the moment you change the quarter and month, right? It is in 2022. Next year, adding 1 year. Okay. I don't know whether we will use this or not, but I'm just telling you the intro part. Okay. This we have seen date arithmetic, right? If you have a date, you can add, plus, do, minus, and all this stuff. You can convert into this one. So you know we are talking about epoch date format, right? Some companies use the epoch format. This epoch format is one which starts with 1970 January 1st, and it tries to calculate from that particular thing. Okay, and unless until there is a use case scenario, I cannot explain this stuff. So alternative time format is this one. 2 times stamp. If you multiply this one, I don't know. I forgot the use case why I have given this. But and there is one more thing, date part. If you are trying to extract a day and then the time and this one, right? I forgot to include that. Let me show you that on the documentation. That is much more handy for you guys. Okay. So I'll show you a scenario where, one second. I'm going to stop sharing one second, right? I'm going to show you some scenario where people had some challenges and then I wrote the code for him. I just want to show you that. Okay. One second, I'm just getting some data for you. Hold on. I'm not sure where this guy's code is. I'm trying. So we have modified his procedure to get the code part of it. Hold on. I'm not. Oops. I got some code, not that one. Let me show you. Let me share my screen. Okay. So he has a parameter begin date, end date, which is a string. But whenever he is passing some data, right, I want to compare that particular thing with whatever he has passed from the table. In this table, he has that as a date format. And we converted them as in two char, begin date, whatever the format that he is passing, and greater than equal to this date or less than equal to this date to filter out some date. Okay. And you have some more for one more function. I don't remember this particular. Yes. So here this is a string, and whenever yes, so the post data is not in the table, it's a date format, and we want to convert it into timestamp format. And the timestamp is 000, right? So the date concatenated by timestamp will give you the timestamp format, because this in this particular query they are trying to get the date part, and then they are building a timestamp out of it. How do you build a timestamp? There is no time portion of it, right? You concatenate and do the time portion of it. Okay, and then we have something called wait and times. So we have one more thing. What year is it? What month is it? If you want to just get the date and time format, you can use date part. This is the quarter, second quarter. And if you say hour, say year, it gives you the year, and then month, and then days, it gives the day. So you can, if you are trying to extract anything from this particular year, what is the year, what is the month, what is, and if you want to have an interval, you can use an interval here. Date part gives you what part of the day you are trying to extract. So this one will come to handy if you are trying to do some additions or something. The reason is, right, if you in your table you have stored only a year part of it, and if you want to, they're passing you the date, and if you are trying to compare the year, right, something like this, right? So in your table they have stored like year and then month separately in two columns, and when somebody is passing you the date, right, you have to extract, like, let's say year, and then get the year, date part of the year, comma date part. So for example, manufacturing, manufacturing. So this is what it is, right? And if you're getting a date somewhere like this, then if you want to query, right, select from text where mfdef is equal to and mfd month. This is how we can query this. Okay. We can extract a year, extract a month, extract a day, and then filter whatever. So this date part helps you in the okay. And then so you are extracting a timestamp one date part year from that particular year. So this is converting into epoch time format. This is the time format and date part epoch seconds. It will give you the entire thing in epoch seconds. Epoch is 1 second. Let me run this code for you. This so starting from 1970 January 1st, it calculates the total number of seconds. Timestamp one epoch second date part. It extracted the epoch part of the seconds. So epoch is always a number for you. If you go and look at this particular, so whenever you store dates, right? If you look at this example, it's a one, and then SFTC store sales, right? Select star from if you see, right, the date part of it here. So time SK is in number. So the date, if you look at the date, right? SS sold date SK. This is a number. So why is it number? Date should not be a number, right? And this is the epoch format where they calculate the number of days from 1970. So if you say, I forgot the syntax. This is epoch seconds. I forgot the syntax. There is a way that you can extract the number of days for the epoch from that 1970, how many number of days until today, how many number of minutes until today. There is some functionality. If you can Google it or you can look at the Snowflake documentation, you can identify that. I think we are pretty much covered with the dates part of it. Dates are always tricky, so you have to figure out the reason what you'll be working is, right. You might have though you'll have challenges at the time of data migrations because the formats are different in your source and the different in your Snowflake. So the first thing that you have to do in your data migration, right, you look at the dates and see what is the best way that whenever you're trying to get data into Snowflake, right, what is the easiest way to convert into a particular format in Snowflake. You do that in your source. Example, in Oracle, whenever you're querying with AM, PM, right? That AM PM time format doesn't work in Snowflake. So by default, somebody converts whenever you have the dates in AM PM in your tables, right? Go ahead and convert into HH24 format rather than AM PM. That is much more easier to handle in Snowflake. So you have to look at the source data whenever you're trying to do. You will be doing a POC, you will be looking at the formats in the table. So look at the format in the source tables and see whether it fits into your Snowflake format. If it doesn't fit, right, when you're trying to get the data, transform the data before getting it here. Okay. Transforming the data here is a little more costly because you have to pay for the extra compute credit. If you can do it in your source system while you are trying to generate the file or using an ETL tool or anything, it's much more cheaper and it becomes easy for you to handle in the target environment. Okay. So that's pretty much about the dates part of it. So now let's go on, see. So shall we start a new topic or shall we start the new topic in the evening? I'm going to talk about roles security part of it. We have to talk about credits and storage. How do you calculate the credits? How many number of credits and all this stuff? There is one chapter, and I can write down the chapters that we have to cover. The one is security, and then the other one is credits. Calculation. Okay, and then user management, and then performance. Okay, these are the four major topics that we have, and we have masking policies, and we have resource monitor. If you want to set up some limits on whomever is using for a particular warehouse, if you want to tell them, okay, this warehouse can only use 100 credits, then after 100 credits, the warehouse gets disabled. You cannot use the warehouse. If you cannot use the warehouse, you cannot run the queries. So how do you set up limits on top of your account, on top of your warehouse? And so we'll see that, what are the things that we can do, okay? And then, did I miss anything here, guys? Data sharing, encryption. One more topic. Security, encryption. That's it. I think pretty much those are the things. Oh, that is an important part. UDF, UDTF. So we have this many. So it's going to take some time, guys. I cannot promise you in 2 weeks. I have to cover up somewhere in the weekdays for you to finish it up. If you have 2 weeks time format, right? If you can accommodate, if you can help me with some days in the weekdays in the evening part of the day, then probably we can cover the entire thing in 2 weeks. This is pretty simple. It doesn't take more than half an hour or 45 minutes. Let's look at the resource monitor now. We do have time, right? Okay. Mhm. Okay. So what are resource monitors? Resource monitors are the one to help control the costs of whatever. You don't want to run into unexpected bills right at the end of the month because you have given free right to the developers. They have used the system left and right and they have queried. They have run very bad queries and all this stuff. How do we enforce a budget on that? In my company, we have different departments and then each department has a budget for Snowflake. And some of them are 8,000, some of them are 5,000, some of them are 12,000 based on the work they do, right? We set up these budgets. So how do you set up the budget? So whenever you sign up for a Snowflake trial account, right? Okay. So how much is the number of credits that they are giving it to you?
400
400 what?
400 credits.
400 credits or $400 worth of credits?
$400, I think.
1 second. Dollars, right? Yeah. Okay. Get $400 worth free usage. So $400 means how many number of credits? 400 worth of free usage when you test drive Snowflake. So we have used the enterprise edition, right? How many credits will I be getting per enterprise edition for $400? I'm talking about a rough figure. I'm not talking ballpark figure. So what is the price of my edition in price? Okay. Okay. My enterprise, I have to go and choose, right? I have registered in APAC movement. Platform is AWS. Region is APAC movement. And then if I go and look at this, $3.3. So total is 400 trades. $400 worth trades divided by 3.3. I'll get 121 credits to work with. How I use these 121 credits is up to me. When the 121 credits are done, then my trial account is expired. And if I use this $400 with 400 divided by 3, which is in US, so I'll get 10 more credits. If I choose my region as US, which is $3 only the pricing, I'll get 10 more credits. So lowest pricing is only US. So all the companies normally go and choose US as their default pricing zone because you get a cheaper price. So the only difference is network traffic, right? Apart from that, nothing else. Okay. So resource monitors can be used to import limits and number of trades that are consumed by user managed virtual warehouse, virtual warehouse used by cloud services. There are two things. Cloud services also have. So initially, so whenever you create a table or drop a table or truncate a table, is your virtual warehouse used? I'm asking you a question. It's an interview question. I create a table. Will the virtual warehouse be used?
Yeah, it is query, right? It should
Sorry?
be, yeah, of course, it will be used because we have something we are
I'm
running,
not
right?
able to hear you properly.
Okay.
Yes, I got you. Yes. No, my question is, will my warehouse will be used? I'm gonna be charged with the compute credit if I create a table or truncate a table. All DDL statements, they are not part of your virtual warehouse. So it's metadata. So it doesn't use your virtual warehouse. It's Snowflake's virtual warehouse. You're not charged for it. If you go and look at the history, the size is empty. If you look at the size, if the size column is empty, that means you're not charged for it. Okay. And if you go and say describe table, show tables, show tasks, show streams, and if you use any current timestamp, current timestamp should work. If you use any of the show commands, right? What happens? Will you be charged for the compute credits? No. So you are not going to charge because it's part of the metadata. All these show statements are all reading from the metadata, so you won't be charged. And then what else? If you're reading from a result scan, result cache, if the queries are being read from a result cache, your virtual warehouse won't be stored. So people started abusing this. I cannot say abuse, but people started using these kind of things very extensively. Show commands, create commands, DDL commands, and all this stuff. On an average day, Snowflake was burning many credits because Snowflake's warehouses, not the user created warehouses. Snowflake created warehouses, they were burning too much credits from their end. Then they came up with another additional 10% on this one. If your virtual warehouse uses more than 10% of these particular kind of queries, you will be charged. So by default, they'll give you a 10% discount of on the cloud services. So I'll show you an example how that can be calculated. And if your virtual warehouse, if you use all these queries more than 10%, then you will be charged whatever the percent that you have. So by default, they'll give you 10% discount. So if your credits are 100 and the cloud services is 10%, then they have already given you 10% discount. You will be paying only 90. So if your cloud service is 15 and the credits are 100, then 100 minus 10 plus 5. So you need to pay 105. We'll go through this Excel and tell you. So they have levied a 10%, and this 10% is if the number of queries, this credit services, right? When your metadata cloud services rate, they call it cloud services rates. If they're more than 10% of what you have used in your virtual warehouse, then you'll be charged. Okay, and the number of trades consumed depends on the size of the warehouse and how long you run it. Limits can be set for specified interval or a date range. You can set your limit per day, per week, per month, per quarter, for the entire account, so that you can have many frequencies. We'll look into it. When these limits are reached and are approaching, and so they have something like if you have utilized 60% of it, 70% of it, 80% of it, 90%, 100%, you can send out a mail communication. So you can communicate. So that you're warned. Warnings are sent out to you that if you're setting up, then how do you do that? Okay. So you can send an alert notification and you can suspend the warehouse. When you suspend the warehouse, what happens? Without the warehouse, you cannot run a query and you cannot utilize the warehouse. And for an example, how do you set up for a department? If it's a finance department and the budget is $1,000, you convert those $1,000 to number of credits. You know the size of the warehouse and you know the addition. So you convert them into number of credits and then put if you have 5 virtual warehouses normally in a production environment or any corporate environment, right? You will have dedicated warehouses for each department. Thin, thin, extra small, thin, medium, thin, large, thin, extra large. We'll give them until this one. And if there is a special requirement for these reporting guys, right? If they are trying to read from huge tables and they're running it, or if you have any data science guys who are running their algorithms, right? Then you'll go for 2x, 3XL and all this stuff. Okay. So we normally give them by default these 4 warehouses: thin, extra small, small, medium, large, extra large. We normally give until large. Extra large is depends upon. So 4 virtual warehouses size, and we tell them whichever you use, you will be burning more. You have to do a trial and error with the queries, run with four of these virtual warehouses to identify which one is your lowest one, and then use that appropriately. We give them the education. So how do you set up a budget on that? If it is $1,000, right? So mine is like we have created the account in US. East Coast or West Coast, the same price, $3. 1,000 divided by 3, 3,333. So that is the number of credits that you can have. So we go and select all the virtual warehouses for the finance team and set them the total number of credits that they can use is 3,333. 10,000 by 10,000 by 3, right? How much is it? 3,333, right? See, so this 1,000. So 3,333 is the total number of credits. We put 3,333 credits on all the finance warehouses. So whenever they are approaching 60%, 70%, 80%, right, we'll get to it. And we'll send out a warning, and they have mail alias, we'll sending out a mail alias to them, and then you're approaching this, and once they approach this one, right, and then they are out of this budget, then they'll ask for a raise in the budget, and too many things will happen. That is part of the culture. Now we understood how we set up the resource monitors, right? This is a very hard topic, and this is mostly done by the DBS. And then people ask you, how do you set up the resource monitors and all this stuff? And this is like a credit card, right? Every month you have the budget, and you can reset the budget. When you set up the frequency for a month, this is my budget. You can after 10,000 after a month, and the budget and the 10,000 again comes back. Based on this, limits can be set for specific interval or date range. So what happens with credit card? You pay the credit card and then it resets to what are the limits, right? The same way we can do that. And then, so resource monitors are not intended to actually, and they are not precise as well. It's kind of very difficult to, because when you're running things in the background, resource monitors won't actually precisely identify and calculate the number of credits to stop that. You will have plus or minus 100 credits here and there. So whenever you're trying to set up a resource monitor, make sure that you would take that into consideration. They're not strictly controlling consumption on hourly basis. They are intended for tracking and controlling credit consumption per interval, day, week, month. Even if you set it up day, week, month, you cannot suspend your virtual warehouse precisely. For whenever my virtual warehouse reaches 3,333, put a break on all the virtual warehouse, suspend all the virtual warehouse. It's kind of difficult because the number of servers that you are running. When 2 servers run, it can consume 3 credits. For example, I'm giving, if you're running an extra large with 16 servers, right? You can reach the credits within no time. So by the time resource monitors identifies and suspends, it's already way past the number of credits. So it's an approximate thing you can come up, or you can set up whenever it has reached 90% itself, you can suspend so that the other 10% is a buffer for you. You're able to follow me, right? So they are not used for to say setting limits and credit usage. When the credit quota thresholds are reached for resource monitor, the assigned warehouses may take some time to suspend, even when the action is suspended immediately. There are different actions, we'll talk about it. So this is just a way so that you are not surprised with too many bills and you are trying to limit them to the number of budget they have. Are you able to follow me, guys?
Yes, Shankar.
Okay. And then so credit quota. So normally whenever you, the quota is the keyword. How much is the quota that you want to put it on a one particular warehouse or multiple warehouses and all this stuff. So these are the properties. Credit quota, number of Snowflake credits that you can put. Okay. And you know quota is not an English word. Quota is derived from Hindi. They didn't have a word for this thing, and then they took quota from Hindi and then they use that is my, and I have read it somewhere. If I am wrong, don't quote me. Okay, I think I have read it somewhere. Okay, so the number of, so for example, if your resource limit to 1000 credits, if your warehouse consumes 700 credits and cloud service consumes 300 credits within a space, so whenever you're putting a limit on the credits, right? The credits are your the regular credits, Snowflake credits, the queries that you run, and then the cloud services credits. Both of them together is 1000. Okay, so whenever you Snowflake internally calculates the cloud services and then using the resource monitor, it sets it up. You don't need to worry about that. But the credits are inclusion of your cloud services. Cloud services means you won't have too much, not 300 is abnormal. I don't see 300 credits, but you might have at least 100, 10%, right? Means 100 of them, or 10 of them, 20 of them. So if you go to your account, right? Where is my account? And if you go change your account admin, okay, and then account tab billing. Should show me graphically what kind of charges that I have. These are my virtual warehouses, and I can go inside. On June 5th, I have burnt so many things. My query. This is storage part of it, this is the billing part of it. I have 8 warehouses, I have consumed 19 credits so far, and this has the cloud services. You can look at it, but I'm not able to see it. We'll come back, we'll see it here. Okay, I'll tell you how to check the cloud services part of it. And the queries, I'll tell you, I'll give you the queries also to calculate that. Okay, and then monitor level. So these properties specify whether the resource monitor used for monitoring credit usage for your entire account or specific set of individual warehouses or a group of warehouses. If you don't set any monitor level, right, then the resource monitor doesn't come into the picture. You have to tell whenever you're trying to create a resource monitor, you have to tell whether you want to monitor on the account level or warehouse level. If you don't mention this, it just creates a resource monitors and it doesn't work. Okay. And the schedule. What is the frequency? And after the schedule, it resets the credits to zero, like a credit card. After the month, if you have paid, then it begins. Here, there is no payment. After a month, it resets to that particular thing. User credits resets back to zero at the beginning of each calendar month. That's the default. Start of the standard Snowflake billing cycle. The default schedule for a resource monitor specifies that it starts monitoring credits immediately. By default, it's immediate. Okay. When the moment you create a resource monitor, it starts monitoring the number of credits. Okay. And it's the frequency. Daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and never. It won't reset. Assign warehouse continue using credits until the credit quota is reached. You can set it up for unlimited. You have given 1 million for the entire 3 years budget, then you can use this. Start date and time when you want to set this up. Whenever I go and create a resource monitor, right? Then you will have. Okay. So this is the picture of it. So I have this many. For example, if you think this is a finance department, I have 5 warehouses, and I can create an individual resource monitor on a particular warehouse, or on a couple of warehouses, or on I can create on 5 of them, and I can create on the account. So, for example, if you look at it, in the entire account, you have 5 virtual warehouses, and I can create a resource monitor. Create quota is 5,000. 5,000 into 3 is 15,000 in the budget for that entire month. And you can set up the frequency, whether it's a year or a month or a day or whatever it is. And I have 1,000 credit for warehouse 3. And 4 and 5, they can combinedly use 2,500. If warehouse 5 uses 2,000 and warehouse 4 consumes 500, that's also fine. It's a combination of those two. Okay. So probably we'll call it a day. We'll stop it here, and we'll create a resource monitor. We'll try to simulate and then disable, suspend a warehouse and see how it works. I cannot 100% show you. I can simulate to 2 credits or 5 credits, and then I can simulate and suspend a warehouse. We'll see that how that can be done. We'll do that in the evening, and we'll start the security part of it once the resource monitor is done. So now we'll start. See, when you come here, right? This takes 2 days. That means the UDF, UDTF entire 1 day or 1 week. So encryption, resource monitor, masking policies, these are all one single weekend. This one single weekend. So we have 3 weekends now to finish it up, not 2 weekends. But if you can account it in the weekdays sometime, right? We can close it down. Yeah. What is that? Generic security parameters, it's like kind of very generic. So if you start and trying to talk about each and every nitty-gritty part of it, right? Then this course is going to go for 3 months. That is the reason whenever I write my SQL commands, whenever there is a necessary for a parameter, I show. Even the time zone also I showed, show parameters like. So you can go and look at the documentation and learn from it. If I go start teaching each and everything, right, it becomes very difficult. I'll tell you how to use parameters, show parameters, how do you filter the parameters, how do you alter the session and set the parameters. That is the major gist of the parameters part of it. Okay. Got it? Information schema, I'm going to talk about in rate calculation. What kind of, because that is part of the Snowflake, and how do you get the access to Snowflake? I'm going to talk in detail about the state monitoring, where information schema, that's where you query your metadata and all this stuff, right? That is very important for you. How do you calculate the credits? How do you calculate the cloud services credits? What is the account share? And what is the difference between the information schema and the account schema, account usage schema, that those things we are going to talk. That is part of the credit calculation. Okay, right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll catch up in the evening.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.